Mr. Green. Mr. Barrett, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Fung, given what we know about the disinformation campaigns targeting our elections, and particularly by the campaign perpetrated by the communist dictatorship in Beijing against former Conservative Member of Parliament Kenny Chiu, the current Liberal government has failed to adequately address this, and this is, borne out by the fact that we have to have a commission to look into foreign interference, and that the legislation that's been put forward has not come in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh years of their mandate. What should government be doing today to prevent hostile foreign state actors like the communist dictatorship in Beijing, from putting their thumb on the scale of Canadian democracy?
So my first recommendation is to set up, there are two different ways. One way is to set up a government agencies like the U.S. model, like the Global Engagement Center, that will give them the authority to monitor the social media posts that are related to the democratic process. So they have the technological capability and the legal authority to stop some of this disinformation. Another approach is to create a not-for-profit organization, and then give that organization the authority to do a similar process, but more independent from the government. Yeah.
Can you provide some examples for anyone who's not familiar, and for the purpose of our report, of the type of actions that the CCP, the communist dictatorship in Beijing, has used to try and influence our elections, and if you have another example of a countermeasure that could be applied to that example that you provide?
Okay. So one of the example, for example, is they are not just focusing on the social media disinformation. When we talk about disinformation, it's often talk about the social media. But for the CCP, they are not just focusing on social media. They also work with traditional media, which is the Chinese media running in Canada. And they are newspaper, they are radio stations in Vancouver and Toronto. And they are collaborating with the CCP, different Chinese organizations running in Canada. So, and one of the questions raised previously, what's the difference between Russians and this disinformation and Chinese disinformation here, is the economic power in here, because they can use the advertisement to indirectly control the radio station and newspaper on what they put on their contents. How do they invite different commentators to the radio stations? So they can use the local economic power to control that, which is not the same in the Russian case. So to fight against this type of collaboration, I think the C-70 will play part of the role, which is trying to identify the foreign agent in this case. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Mr. Bateman, you're someone who has experience assessing a foreign state senior leadership and cybersecurity. Are you able to identify any systems or countermeasures that the current government could have put in place to this point, or could now quickly put in place to protect us from malicious state actors, to protect our national security, our economy, to protect our democracy?
I'm not specifically familiar with gaps within the Canadian system, but I can offer some best practices from other systems. So there are a variety of tools that are available to governments to fight foreign interference. One of them is naming and shaming, sanctions, indictments. Another is targeted technical actions, such as cyber operations that could be carried out to disrupt the foreign activity, especially during a temporary sensitive period, such as before or after an election. And there are others as well, like Professor Fung mentioned, simply public disclosure and public information. And so one path would be to build capacity in each of those areas. But another path would be to build connectivity across these areas and make sure that they're working together, which is something the U.S. government has done. I will say that in the end, it's not clear how effective any of these policies are. We've been naming and shaming and indicting and sanctioning and disrupting these adversaries for some time, and it probably has some operational impact on them, but it doesn't stop the activity.
Response. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Thank you, Mr. Babin. They seem to be even more emboldened now. So.